Sairam students, today we are going to start with a new chapter, that is Educating Mother, written by Suganti Krishnamachari. Chapter number 7 from New Voices textbook. So students, all of you be ready with a pen and a notebook to write all the important points that we are going to learn. Students, this chapter is all about storytelling. Our grandparents and parents usually tells a story so that we can improve our vocabulary and also learn certain morals, right? Now, before we start with this chapter, let us first learn something about Suganti Krishnamachari, as she is the writer of this chapter. Now students, there is no information given in your textbook about Suganti Krishnamachari, but I would like to tell you something about her, that she had a huge impact on Tamil literature. Nana Krishna Deva Rayan novel was translated in English by Suganti Krishnamachari. Her most renowned work include Nylon Rope, Krishna Deva Rayan, and so on. Alright students, now let's move ahead and understand the central idea of this chapter. This chapter is all about appreciating the art of storytelling. Storytelling was once the domain of grandparents with twin objects of improving children's vocabulary and imparting moral standards. However, today's children are more intelligent and are of technological bent of mind, and they can no longer be silenced with old fantasies. That's what the story is all about. Now here, the mother is a narrator and she tries to entertain the children by telling different stories like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Red Riding Hood. Then she also tried to narrate the story of Cinderella, but she was interrupted by the children with their politically correct questions. Then she again tried to tell the story about Jack and the Beanstalk, then about Patala Bhairavi. But the children were quick to reason the sensible logic behind the stories. They questioned the norms and had come up with their own version of the stories. Finally, mother flees away. That is, she ran away from the situation as she was exhausted with their unending questions. Now let's look at the characters in the story. We have mother, she is the narrator. Then we have grandmother. We have Ambu. Ambu is 12-year-old and she is the narrator's daughter. Then is Ramu. Ramu is 4-year-old and he is narrator's son. Then we have Janki. Janki is narrator's niece and she is 6-year-old. Then we have Venku. Venku is narrator's nephew and he is 3-year-old. Alright? Now let's start with this fascinating chapter. It all started when my mother asked me to tell the children a story. I cleared my throat and began. Long, long ago. How long ago? Squeaked my 3-year-old nephew Venku. Never mind. It was long time ago. Let's get on with the story. Try telling my history teacher that, said my 12-year-old daughter Ambu. She insists that I get all the dates right in my history test. Now students, here squeaked means make a high pitch sound or cry. Now here in these paragraphs, the grandmother asked her daughter to tell the story to the children, and there were 4 children listening to the story. They were Venku, Ambu, Ramu and Janaki. Now she cleared her throat and started. Long, long ago. Now students, as we all know, today's children are more intelligent and are of technological bent of mind, and they can no longer be silenced with old fantasies, right? So, as soon as mother said long ago, Venku, her 3-year nephew, squeaked and asked, how long ago? Here, narrator tries to ignore his question and said, never mind, it was long time ago. Let's go on with the story. Then Ambu, her 12-year-old daughter, she insists to know the correct date. As she says, her history teacher demands to get all the dates right in the history test. It's clear till here, students? Now let's move ahead and read further. I decided to ignore her. There was this girl called Goldilocks. The names parent come up with, muttered Ambu. Thank God, you didn't choose to call me Long Nose or Saucer Eyes. Goldilocks decided to go for a long walk. I continued. Did she have a weight problem? Asked my 4-year-old son Ramu. No, she didn't. She went for a long walk and strayed into the forest. Soon she discovered that she was lost. Now here students, strayed means moved away from a familiar place. Now, though Ambu and Venku were eager to know the correct date and time when the story started, and since the mother was unable to answer their question, she decided to ignore them and she continued with the story. There was this girl called Goldilocks. Now again, Ambu whispered, thank God you didn't choose to call me Long Nose or Saucer Eyes. She thought, how could parents come up with such names? Now here, mother again ignored her and she continued with the story and said, Goldilocks decided to go for a long walk. Now, she was again interrupted by her 4-year-old son Ramu. He asked, did she have a weight problem? Now, for this question again, mother did not have any perfect answer as why Goldilocks was walking in the forest. So she replied, she did not have any weight problem, but she went for a long walk and she was lost into the forest. So students, let's read ahead and continue with this chapter. If she had a cell phone, she could have called her mother, said my 6-year-old niece Janki. Don't be stupid, they had no cell phones in those days, said Ambu. Oh, so it was that long ago, exclaimed Janki, as if the pre-cell phones era belonged to the antediluvian days. Now here students, era means a long and distinct period of history. Then antediluvian days means before the biblical flood, that means very old. Now, when these children understood that Goldilocks was lost into the forest, so now Janki, her 6-year-old niece, interrupted and said, if she had a cell phone, she could have called her mother and informed her where she is. Now, for this, Ambu replied, there was no cell phone in those days. Now Janki understood that it was very old story. Almost by now it is a history. Alright students, now let's read ahead. The poor thing came to a cottage that belonged to the 3 bears. She was so hungry that she made straight for the dining room. There, on a table, were 3 cups of porridge. She had a sip from Father Bear's cup. It was too hot. Mother Bear's porridge was too cold. But the porridge in Baby Bear's cup was just right. So she drank the Baby Bear's porridge. Now students, here Porridge means a dish consisting of oatmeals or cereals boiled in water or milk. Now here, students, though mother was fed up with their questions, but she still started narrating the story. She said, Goldilocks came to a cottage which belonged to the three bears. She was so hungry that she had a sip from Father Bear's cup and then from Mother Bear's cup, but she did not find it comfortable. But when she finally tried Baby Bear's cup of porridge, she found it perfect, and so she drank the porridge. Students, do you all remember this Goldilocks and Three Bears stories? Yes, I'm sure you all must have heard this during your nursery class, right? Let me just tell you the story in short about Goldilocks and Three Bears. We will go back to our nursery. Alright. Now, one day, I will start something like this. Long, long ago, one day, Goldilocks went to the forest and she was lost there. She finds a beautiful cottage which belongs to three bears. She went inside the cottage. She was so hungry that she found three bowls of porridge. She tasted the porridge from big bowl which belongs to the father bear, and it was too hot. Then she tasted the porridge from medium bowl which belongs to mother bear. It was too cold. Then finally she tasted from small bowl which belongs to baby bear, and she find it perfect. So she drank that. Now, since she was so tired, she walks towards the bedroom. She finds the baby bear's bed to be perfect, and so she soon fell asleep. Now, students, do you feel that today's intelligent children will accept these old fantasies story easily? No, right? Now, let's read further and understand what happened next. Actually, I think Goldilocks is a murder mystery, said Ambu. Her reading consisted of a staple diet of thrillers and romances, and her thoughts tended towards the macabre. This was too much even for me. Indulgent mother thought I was. A murder mystery? How can you be so stupid? Now, student, here staple diet means main diet. Then macabre means unpleasant or connected with death or violence. Then indulgent means allow someone to do or have what they want. Now here, Ambu had modified the story. She thinks that Goldilocks was a murder mystery, as the story consists of staple diet of thrillers and romances. Now, her mother asked, how could it be a murder mystery? For this, let's read further and understand what Ambu replies. Well, how do we know it wasn't a murder mystery? I've only heard your version of it. How do I know you haven't edited out all the interesting bits simply because you don't approved on murder story? I think Goldilocks was in Harris. The house in the forest belonged to the person who stood to inherit the property if she died. Seeing her go into the forest, he must have put a bowl of poisoned porridge in the cottage. She must have drank the porridge and died. The bears are only your invention. Now here, students, version means a particular form of something differing in certain. Then heiress means a woman who is legally entitled to the property. Then inherent means to receive property or a title of a person after their death. Then invention means creation. Now here, Ambu genuinely feels that why someone will just unnecessarily keep the bowl of porridge. She feels that it is definitely a murder mystery. She describes that Goldilocks might be a heiress and the house and the forest belong to the person who stood to inherit the property if she died. That means that there is someone who wants Goldilocks to die so that that person can capture her property after her death. Now, when that particular person saw Goldilocks walking into the forest, he might have kept a bowl of poisoned porridge in the cottage. And she must have drank the poisoned porridge and died. Ambu felt the bears might be her mother's creation, as she does not accept a murder story. Now, that's a good story created by Ambu, right? Now, students, I will stop this session here and we will continue with the same chapter in our next online session. Alright, Saira and take care.